Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's time for more projections, and it's time for more predictions. That's right. It's Week 18 in the NFL, so we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of betting, a little bit of everything here on the show as the NFL regular season is going to come to a close. But we're going to squeeze every last ounce we possibly can out of it. And to help me do it, of course, is the Big Pot Energy Man himself, Mr. Undertaker, Andrew Erickson, who loves himself some unders. And Andrew, last week, pretty good week on the show. Looking back, CMC got hurt, so unfortunately I fell short on that prediction. But I did have the Kyren Williams big performance. He went over the rush prop, a couple touchdowns here and there. I saw a few touchdowns from Kyren Williams. James Cook went under on the rushing yards. And you, my friend, crushing the Dak Prescott props, crushing the Arizona offense, beating up on the Eagles. Must feel pretty good. You basically called that upset, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those weird games where even in my, pick 'em where you have to pick just winners, I had the Eagles in, as one of those like locks, and like I looked at it like, man, I don't know if I feel good about this one, because I went back to, Jonathan Gannon, having experience against an Eagles team that's, again, been underwhelming all year long, just kind of getting by against bad teams. And, again, so when we look up and see, oh my God, the Cardinals beat the Eagles, it's like, if you've been following the Eagles all year long, you really shouldn't be this surprised. And unfortunately, at least I was then on the over, but definitely could have made a lot more money just betting on the Cardinals themselves.
Well, we got one more week to get it right, so hopefully we will. And before we get to it, we want to congratulate all of you who won your fantasy championships. Congratulations. We know how hard you worked, how many hours of preparation you put in, of managing your teams, of listening to the podcast, watching the podcast on YouTube. And for those of you who listened and subscribed to the channel and dropped the comments, some of you won some free stuff, and we got one more fun thing to give away. The winner of the Ultimate Custom Fantasy Championship belt, courtesy of Trophy Smack, is Matt Egan. Matt, get in touch with us at customer support, mailbag at fantasypros.com with your mailing address, proof of your subscription to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, and we'll get that trophy shipped to you right away. Again, Matt Egan, congratulations. Hopefully you won your fantasy league, and if not, you keep the belt for yourself. Get yourself something nice because you're the winner of that. And also, we're going to step into New Year with a true fantasy football champion with Trophy Smack's championship ring in Week 18. So another chance, another opportunity to win something cool for yourself or for your league mates. So whether you're one of the most dedicated players remaining in the fray, still playing Week 18 because you're nuts, which again, I think you're nuts. But anyway, we are still going here, Fantasy Pros. So let's make sure that you drop your comments below. Make sure you ring the bell for notifications, and the Trophy Smack Championship ring can be yours. So again, ring the bell so we can notify you and when every time a new piece of content drops. And we've got all kinds of amazing content wrapped up for you around the holidays here. January, we're going to do our fantasy awards. We're going to start looking ahead to stuff. We're going to do so many fun things, not to mention on the Betting Pros channel, all the playoff and Super Bowl coverage we're going to be doing. It's going to be a good time. Football ain't over. It's just taking a little bit of a breath and paring down. And plus, it's expanded playoffs. We got more teams going. Lots of fun things. So, Erickson, let's have some fun. Let's start with a prediction. Week 18 bowl prediction. What's first on your list? What do you have for the people?
The Indianapolis Colts are going to win. They're going to beat the Houston Texans at home this week. As I've talked about a lot on the Betting Pros show, Colts are 100% against the spread as a favorite. They have covered every single game. They're 6-0 as a favorite this season. And when you look at the spread, it's interesting because I think a lot of people would be surprised that the Colts are even favored in this game at all. Against the Texans, the market loves CJ Stroud. Every time you look at a Texans line, it's super overinflated because of CJ Stroud. So the fact that Vegas is still giving the Colts the favorite tag here by it's only -1, I think they're going to win. I'm just going to, unless this line flips, in which case I'm going to have to back out of the Colts because I've been burned by that twice already. So it's going to be a line I'm going to be paying very close attention to leading up to kickoff. But it's two teams that are playing to get into the playoffs, so it should be a really fun game to watch. But if the Colts win, which I think they will, I don't think it's going to be because of Jonathan Taylor. I think that Jonathan Taylor is going to struggle in this matchup against the Houston Texans, who have been the complete opposite of what they've been in years past, where you just run against them every single week, running against Texans. Not the case this year. Haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher this season, allowing just 69 rushing yards per game.
That's my note. You can't steal my notes from my predictions. What are you doing?
I'm using it against you.
But you're a thief. I didn't even get to go yet. You're using my predictions against me, and I'm hosting the show. I'm not even supposed to be here today. But yes. All right, so wrap it up. Put the prop along with it here for Jonathan Taylor.
Taylor under 80 and a half rushing yards.
Okay.
He's gone over that number twice this year. 2 times. And Zach Moss is probably going to come back this week. So
all right.
I think this is an easy under. So starting off 2024 strong with an under.
All right, my number 5 prediction is I am also on the Colts this week. They are at home, and you're right. I think it's the underdog story of CJ Stroud, the Texans. It's fun. It's different. It's unique. Everyone's excited for it. CJ Stroud is easy to root for. It's easy to root for a team to turn things around. As Erickson pointed out and stole from me, the Texans haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year. The closest, though, was a guy who played for the Colts earlier this season. His name was Zach Moss, who ran for 88. I went and I did my homework here, and you stole the answers from me. It's not very nice of you, but I think Jonathan Taylor is going to go over 100 yards rushing in this one. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands, and despite the fact that the Texans are indeed a very tough rush defense, I'm going to go over, and I'm going to set this prop even higher than you. You had 80.5. I'm going to go 85.5, and I'm going to throw an anytime TD on there too, a plus 110, maybe must 120 if I get lucky enough to find a better number somewhere. But I think that Jonathan Taylor single-handedly here, they're going to put the ball in his hands. We're going to focus on the run, and we are going to find a way to overcome what is a very good front, what has, as you said, been the exact opposite of what the Texans have been from an identity from the last few years. You can run all over the Texans. Well, you can't run them anymore. But week 18, Jonathan Taylor is. So my bold prediction is over 100. We're both on the Colts, though, so at least people can glean something for that. So that'll be fun. I'm glad that we're head-to-head on this first one. And if you want to continue having some fun, whether it be in the NFL or even college football, you just had the playoffs begin yesterday. Championship season is here. And DraftKings Sportsbook is making sure that you can throw down epic showdowns and get a shot at big bucks. So new customers can score 150 instantly in bonus bets for just $5 in the championship game. So that's coming up just a week from now. Also, we've got all the NFL action. We just broke down the Week 18 slate here of NFL games on Betting Pros, so go check that out on the channel too. We have some really good leans this week on some games that are going to be pretty wacky, a lot of playoff implications, so make sure you're using the Betting Pros tools. Make sure you're watching the shows so you can go ahead and make the best investments you can and make those investments over at DraftKings. Download that app now and use that promo code FantasyPros, and new customers can score 150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on college football, for NFL football, whatever it is. Only on DraftKings with that promo code FantasyPros. The crown is yours. Erickson, crown another prediction for Week 18. What's number 4 for you?
Best part about Week 18 is you get to dive into these player contract incentives. You look at players, this guy only needs X amount of yards to get an extra $250K to start off the year right. So for me, I'm looking at the same game on the Houston Texans side, though, looking at their running back, Devin Singletary. So he needs 165 rushing yards to cash in a contract bonus. So again, that's the bold prediction, is him getting to 165 rushing yards. It's obviously a massive number, but Devin Singletary's gotten games where he's seen over 30 touches. Like they've shown that they're willing to give him the ball in plus matchups, and that's the case here against Indianapolis Colts. Look, the Colts have been one of the worst run defenses all year long, allowing the 5th most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. The last 7 running backs they faced have gone for at least 70 rushing yards. So I think that the low-hanging fruit, you just take the over on his normal rushing prop. I think it's going to be around 58.5, 60 rushing yards. He's still the clear-cut RB1 in this offense. Obviously, you have CJ Stroud back, which is good for him. He had 80 rushing yards last week. So, yeah, I really like Motor Singletary in this matchup. And if the Texans surprise us and they end up winning this game, I think it's going to be because they're going to be feeding Devin Singletary in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And you could see, hey, D'Amico Ryans is a player's coach. Hey, let's get this guy the ball. So we could see a massive game for Devin Singletary and get that player bonus.
Yeah, well, look, D'Amico Ryans done a great job there for the Texans. And the Indianapolis Colts defense is not the greatest unit. We know that. For me, number 4 is another one that's about feelings and about emotions and about a guy who's going to have a chance to coach at home and coach for his job. And it's a relatively new job for Antonio Pierce. So this one's a little bit of the head and the heart coming together here, along with the feet of Zamir White. So I'm going to go over 100 rushing yards versus the Broncos rush defense. You put the ball in Zamir White's hands. I think that the Raiders have an opportunity here to really, again, continue to show the organization that Pierce is a guy we want to play for. The Raiders defense has played terrific football here since the changeover has happened. So I imagine that Zamir White line is going to be somewhere around 80.5 rushing yards. Anytime touchdowns, probably going to be pretty low too. Probably somewhere around like plus 105 would be my guess. But I like them both, the over and the anytime touchdown. You put them together, you'll probably get a better number. But Zamir White, to me, has really, done a fantastic job. There's no reason to worry about Josh Jacobs at all. I think at this point, the season's over. The Raiders don't have anything to play for in terms of playoffs. But what they are playing for is showing that, hey, the future is here. Let's not make the same mistake twice. We had an interim head coach that everybody loved, everybody played hard for, everybody rallied around. And then you moved on and you brought in Josh McDaniels, and that did not work out. There was an unmitigated disaster. Pierce has the ear of this team. He has the soul of this team. I think the defense shows up, but most importantly, I think you put the ball in Zamir White's hands against the Denver Broncos defense that is not very good against the run. Are you with me, Andrew? Do you think Zamir White can get to that century mark, close out the season strong, Pierce keeps the job, and maybe we're looking at Zamir White being the lead back for the Raiders in 2024?
Yeah, I think that I'm not so sure he's going to be the lead back next year. I think that the Raiders could do a lot of different things with draft capital. He's also a day 3 pick, so I think that makes it tough on him. But I think for this particular matchup, I don't see Josh Jacobs not coming back. Like, that guy is checked out. He is done. He's not coming back. So it is going to be Zamir White's backfield, and you can't deny the great matchup on paper against Denver.
Now, sometimes the schedule works out for certain teams, sometimes not so much for others. But in terms of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is the perfect time to get the Carolina Panthers. And that is where we go for Andrew Erickson's next prediction for Week 18.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is going to win the NFC South because they're going to beat the Carolina Panthers. I know, that seems like it's
crazy.
But
do they cover the 5.5? That's the number right now currently.
I
think they do.
Probably not.
You don't think so? After Carolina got shut out last week and the owner's throwing drinks at people?
Look, this week, again, I'm going to write it up in the BP primer, but it's like this week is so motivation driven, and I think that you're going to see just a lot of bets just placed on motivation. When we see all the time teams that literally don't play for anything beat teams that have everything to play for. Like, it happens all the time. So it's like I'm trying to fall away from these almost like sucker bets where it's like, oh, well, like they have everything to play for and Carolina has nothing to play for, so they should win. It's like, but that doesn't ever happen half the time. So I'm not so sure I want any action on the spread in this. I just think that the Buccaneers are going to end up winning the game. So for me, I'm looking at the player props. I want to buy the Bucs offense. Maybe it's more of a Bucs team total bet that I would probably look more at as opposed to the spread, because I know that they can score on the Carolina defense. So I like Baker Mayfield going over his passing yards prop at 232.5 passing yards. And I know Carolina's defense has been really good against the pass, but Baker Mayfield's gone over this in 3 straight games. And if it's going to be a big game for Mike Evans, like we saw last time they played Carolina, he had over 160 receiving yards. Somehow Baker Mayfield only threw for like 200 yards. I think that this is an all-in game for the Buccaneers offense, all their offensive pieces. I like the overs on a lot of their guys. And Baker Mayfield in particular, again, another guy who has a ton of player contract incentives. Like, he gets extra money for finishing top 10 and passer rating and passing yards and yards per attempt. And he's like on the cusp in a lot of those categories. So he has every incentive to chuck the ball. And I think we're going to know it's going to go to Mike Evans. So I like Baker Mayfield a lot in this spot. I think Buccaneers get the win.
I'm confident they cover the 5.5. I am. I think Mike Evans has another huge game here. It's not an official prediction, but historically speaking, things are usually good for him against the Carolina Panthers. And, just we'll see if the owner has any more drinks that he might want to order to throw on any fans. Who knows? Would you let Robert Kraft throw a drink in your face if it meant maybe getting a higher draft pick? Would you let it? I'd let him do that to me.
Sure.
Why not? Maybe it's not something with too much citrus. I don't want to burn my eyes. Maybe, maybe a martini or something like that. None of those fruity drinks, because they get in your eyes and all of a sudden it hurts. But it's not summertime, so there's no reason to have those umbrella drinks. It's wintertime, and this is the time where you got to check your tires and figure out what's going on with your vehicle before winter really sets in. If you need new tires for your car, Discount Tire is your go-to. They have exceptional service, and you get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com. They have this really cool feature too called Treadwell, which is an online tire buying guide that gives you transparency on tire performance as well as personalized recommendations based on your location and your driving habits. And Erickson has driving habits. Let me tell you, he is erratic out there on the streets. Discount Tire is also the largest independent tire retailer in the country, so it has the biggest selection of tires and wheels. And here's a pro tip from the experts at Discount Tire: you can prevent wear and boost gas mileage by keeping your tires properly inflated. Did you know that? Tire pressure supports the weight of your vehicle and is important to check for safety. So if it's been over a month since you last checked your tire pressure, stop by one of their local stores for a free tire safety and air pressure check. Discount Tire. Let's get you taken care of. Erickson, let's get another prediction taken care of, shall we? Let's go back to the New York Football Giants. Tyrod Taylor is going to put up back-to-back 20-point fantasy weeks, despite the fact Brian Daboll makes bad decisions sometimes. And this week it's going to be against the Eagles. I like the Giants to cover this football game. That's right. I said it. Tyrod Taylor's fun. I'm enjoying this little audition here he has for next year. Who knows where he'll be or where he'll back up potentially. So I don't want to see Tommy DeVito anymore. I want to see Tyrod Taylor. I want to see the prop somewhere around 230 passing yards, 230 and a half, maybe 235 and a half. I think that's where this number is going to be against the Eagles secondary that has not been good. I also want the over on the rushing yards. That's probably going to be somewhere around the 21 and a half mark. I'm going over there, and I'd go over the 1.5 passing touchdowns as well. So a lot of overs for me with Tyrod Taylor against the Eagles this week. Now, I know, the Eagles coming off a loss last week. They played the Giants just 2 weeks ago. So, Andrew Erickson, here's the big question for you today. Do the Eagles just completely fall apart here at the end when they get a second shot here at the Giants? Or do they handle their business against the Giants and start to get a little momentum building towards the playoffs where they have, let's face it, kind of slumped to the finish line?
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a really bad finish for the Eagles after they went through that juggernaut in their schedule. It seems like they haven't really caught their breath basically since facing all those really tough opponents. So for me, looking back at before they faced the Giants the first time over this 3-game stretch, it really felt like, okay, they're going to blow one of these games here against like two Giants games that are bad, the Cardinals team's a bad team. So it's like, I think they got the bad loss out of their system last week against the Cardinals. I think they take care of business against the Giants.
Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, a lot of playoff scenarios. Now, we read and went through all of them over on Betting Pros this morning on the last show we just did. So if you want to see all the breakdowns of the betting and everything there, go check that out. That look-ahead show, that should be out pretty soon here. But you've got a prediction based on one of these games in the NFC that's going to have some moving pieces in it potentially for the playoffs. So let's talk about your next projection here and your next prediction when it comes to Seattle, Erickson. What do you have for number 2?
Seahawks are going to get the win against the Arizona Cardinals, and they're going to make it into the playoffs because the Packers are going to lose. That's what's going to happen. The Packers, for the second straight year, control their destiny in Week 18, and they blow it. And then that's what happens. They blow it. Chicago Bears play spoiler. They're playing for Justin Fields is playing for his NFL career at this point. Like, we don't know where he's going to end up. The Bears fans want him, but does the Bears management want him? Still to be determined. We shall see. But Eberflus is also coaching for his job, even though the reports are, he's safe. I think that a big win over a division Packers team is going to go a long way, make sure he keeps that job. Whether that's the right thing or not remains to be seen. But if they win in a big way, it's going to be hard to fire the coach after a big win against a division rival to knock them out of the playoffs. So, but back to the Seahawks matchup at the prediction. So if they're going to get business done against Arizona, I think it's going to be because of Ken Walker. Now, Ken Walker is like playing with like one shoulder, but it doesn't matter because the guy is an absolute warrior. And he's just out there ripping off big runs left and right. So he's facing the Arizona Cardinals run defense, which is the worst in the NFL, allowing the most rushing yards per game than any other team, tied with Denver basically, over 130 rushing yards per game. So Ken Walker, I think he's going to be limited all week. He's probably not going to practice a lot. He's going to be like, I don't know. Pete Carroll's going to the shoulder. I don't know if it's going to hang on, but Ken Walker's going to suit up. He's going to play, and he's going to go over 62.5 rushing yards. He can get this on one play. He doesn't need his shoulder to rip off a 30-yard run. That's what his legs are for. So I think Ken Walker, if he's out there, I think that he's going to be a gamer and he's going to be really productive. So I'm going to take the over on his rushing yards prop. And if he doesn't play, well, then you get your money back. So you're all good.
There you go. Once again, you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum. I agree that Chicago's played very well, but going on the road to Green Bay, that's not usually been the MO of the Bears organization. Now, maybe that's different. Maybe this is where they start fresh here. It's a new year. It's a new me, right? Everybody says that all the time. Well, I'm not so sure yet. And I know another guy who's a warrior, and his name is Jayden Reed. He's been hurt a few times here down the stretch, and he keeps showing up, and he keeps showing up in games. And guess what? He keeps performing, and he keeps catching touchdowns. Jayden Reed's going to finish as a wide receiver 1 this week. Not the number 1 overall, but a wide receiver 1, a top 12 guy in Week 18. Despite the rib injury, he's still going to get on the field. He knows how important this game is to the Packers. He's got 7 touchdowns in his last 7 games, folks. This guy's a machine. So the Packers win. They get in. Give me the Packers and give me anytime touchdown for Jayden Reed at plus 130. I think you get both of those things, and I think that's a beautiful day at the office. You can move that minus on the game over into a plus when you pair those two things together. A little stack, little skinny pairing, a little tiny duo parlay, so to speak, a duet parlay. I like that, duet parlay. I'm going to steal that for myself, and I'm going to make that a thing next year. But look, this is the way I'm approaching this game. It's funny because Pat Fitzmaurice is where you are. He is not too steady about his Green Bay Packers. So he bet the Bears, so he figures either way he'll be happy. Green Bay wins, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, his pocket got fatter. And everybody's looking for the latter. All right, let's get to some more props here, some more predictions that we've got going on. And don't forget, everybody, over on Betting Pros, like I said, we've got the channel going. But if you haven't already downloaded the app, do it. And set the game notifications so you get all the line alerts, because things are going to be moving everywhere this week. There's going to be so many guys. This player's in, this player's out, this player is not going to play anymore. All these things are going to be crazy. This is the most important week to set that feature over on your Betting Pros app to follow all those lines. So continue on, Andrew Erickson. Take us through your number one prediction here and your number one prop attached to it for week 18.
So my number one prediction is the Steelers as road favorites against the Baltimore Ravens, who may or may not be resting their starters, are going to lose to the Ravens. Because this is just how football works in 2024.
So even with the Ravens sitting everybody, it doesn't matter.
Well, here's the thing. So John Harbaugh has stated before in the past that he made a mistake in 2019 where he rested his starters in week 17 and they came out flat. They had a bye week, came out flat as the number one seed, and they got smashed by the Titans. And they didn't stand a chance. So again, with all their guys, if they're going to sit their starters this week, then they have a bye week. It's like, are they going to lose momentum? Like, this is a team that's really built a lot of momentum. So I'm not so sure. I'm not so convinced that, he's just going to rest everybody. Like, you're not going to see any of those guys play. Now, they're injured players. Okay, those guys obviously aren't going to play. But I'm not so sure that even a Ravens team that, maybe down a couple starters should be underdogs by 4 points against the Steelers and Mason Rudolph. Like, I'm sorry. I just can't buy into that. So, again, you got to monitor what the Ravens are doing, what they're saying up to this week. But if we're all convinced the Steelers are just going to go into Baltimore and just win this game and the Ravens are going to give a win to their division rivals that they hate, the Steelers already beat the Ravens. Do you think the Ravens are going to lose to the Steelers twice in the same season? No. I don't think so. So for me, this is I cannot back the Steelers in any way, shape, or form because I'm not falling for they're motivated, so they should just win. I don't think that's enough for me to back them. But I do for the props. I do like Najee Harris over his rushing yardage prop. 55.5 yards. They've been feeding him like crazy in the last two games that Mason Rudolph has started. Mm-hmm. And if the Ravens are playing or down some starters, they should be at least be productive running the football. So that's how I like approach this game a little bit more. If not, I do think I like the Ravens side because I think they're just being undervalued by the market, and everyone just assumes, they're going to rest everybody when, Harbaugh has stated things that may not be the same.
You're right. Maybe they've learned from previous transgressions. It's very possible. So Erickson is almost guaranteeing here, it seems like, a Ravens victory over the Steelers. And to get food from your favorite restaurants plus groceries and other essentials delivered straight to your front door with Uber Eats this football season, stay planted on your couch for all the action. Get anything, almost anything you need for game day by ordering on the Uber Eats app. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Outgo in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See the app for details. So go get your Uber Eats on. Go watch the Ravens with the backups beat the Steelers. That's what Erickson said. Now, look, do you think Lamar plays 4 quarters? I don't. I think he plays a half.
Well,
that's what I think.
I mean, he didn't play the entire time against the Dolphins. Just look, man, Huntley threw a touchdown.
I'll take the L on that one too. I'm gonna, everyone always says people don't take enough L's. I'll take the L, man. I thought the Dolphins could possibly catch the Ravens napping a little bit. They did not. The Ravens pounded them unmercifully. It was ugly. So yeah, I was definitely wrong on that one. Go ahead, Erickson. I've taken my L. Go ahead. Now beat me over the head with it.
No. I mean, Ravens, what is it? Was minus 3.5 was the lock of all locks because they're a team that every time they play a good team, they show up. It's when they play bad teams is when you're worried about the Ravens. So you're worried about if they run into a bad team in the divisional round. It's like, oh no, and they're 10-point favorites. Like, that's when you ought to be afraid to bet on the Ravens. But when they are facing other guys they're afraid of.
Like, I'm looking at these playoff teams, like, the teams that they might face in round 2. It's like Cleveland, Buffalo, Indianapolis, right? Like, those are the teams.
Cleveland's interesting because you obviously have like the Joe Flacco narrative, but that's that's enough of a narrative to like drive the Ravens to like, hey, like no, like he's playing really well. Like we need to show up and beat this player. Like he may be Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco's elite, so we need to make sure that we're ready to go. So that that's the thing that people want. We want Joe Flacco playing.
We
for
all
the Browns.
want that game. that is good television right there. I don't care what the game ends up being. It's good theoretical television. I can't even imagine. I mean, obviously Baltimore would be favored. I would think like 4.5. That would be my number. I don't think it's 3.5 or 3. I think it's more than that. They have to be, coming off the bye. That's where I'd be for that one, but we'll see if we get it. I'm hoping we do. The other thing I'm hoping that we get is a Josh Allen. Speaking of the Miami Dolphins, and after my unhappiness with them last week, now I'm going to take it out on you, Miami Dolphins. You called down the thunder. Now you've got it. Josh Allen passing yards. I'm going to go for a 300-yard game here. That's right. The last time he played Miami, he did just that. He put up 320 actually, and Lamar put up 320 last week on them. So I'm going right back to this well here. They've had some injuries over on the defensive front for the Miami Dolphins. And look, Joe Brady has not exactly been the guy who is wheeling and dealing and throwing the football all over the place in this offense. A lot more running the football, a lot more balance. It was good to see Dalton Kincaid show up again. He's been MIA for the last month, it feels like. So I think that's a good sign. But I think if you are going to win this game, you're going to have to throw the football. This is your night game here, prime time, Josh Allen. This is a chance to win this East. And this makes a big difference, too, in where you are in the seedings. Dude, you win the East, you're the 2 seed. That's where you want to be right now. Like that's a big deal here for the Miami Dolphins, but I don't think they're going to be able to get the job done. Tua is banged up. The defense is banged up. Tyreek Hill is not quite 100%. So the prop for Josh Allen, I think it's going to be somewhere around 235. It could even be as high as maybe 245.5, somewhere in that range. So I'm going to go over the passing yards for him because I think he can get all the way to 300. So if you want to tease it up, you can. But I'm going to go under the rushing yards for Josh Allen, which is a little odd for me, but I'm going to go under that at 30.5. So over on the passing, under on the rushing for Josh Allen. What do you think of this game here? This is that big primetime matchup for the AFC East. Do you have a feeling about this one? And I know it's sad because it's not like the Patriots and Jets is that game that's the battle for the AFC East. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, those teams are playing for something else.
I don't know what. I don't know what.
I'm the world's biggest Jets fan. Come week 18, I'm very looking forward to going Gang Green all day, baby, all day for Gang Green. And this matchup is really interesting to me because you have two teams that they're really not coming in like hot. Like they're both kind of like stumbling in. It's like, what's the identity on both teams? Obviously, Miami's super banged up, but they're playing at home. So it's like, do they have that advantage there against Josh Allen, who's, again, with Joe Brady, it's been really more of a James Cook offense, but the Dolphins are good against the run. So it's like, are they going to get away from that? And Stephon Diggs, like, where are you, man? Like, he's been MIA for like the last 7 weeks. Like, his receiving has just plummeted. Is he healthy? He's not playing all the snaps in the offense. We're not really sure what's going on with him, but if Josh Allen's going to get to 300 yards, like Diggs has to do something. And like you mentioned, Josh Allen's stat line against Miami, that was like Diggs' last big game. It was against the Miami Dolphins when he had a monster
Ramsey
game.
wasn't playing then either, too, at that point. So that's another thing to remember. That's really an
interesting matchup where it's like, do they just like, hey, take Diggs and we're going to try to beat you with Shakir, with Gabe Davis, guys that have stepped up in certain moments during the season, or Kincaid? Does he continue to roll over his production from last week after he kind of fell off? I think it makes the most sense. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like when Dawson Knox comes back, they're like, nope, we're not using Dalton Kincaid anymore, even though he's really productive when Dawson was injured. It's like, why? Like, why are we doing this, guys? Like, just use your best players. That's Dalton Kincaid. So maybe a little sprinkle of some Dalton Kincaid overs. I know Miami's a weaker defense against tight ends.
Stephon Diggs hasn't posted a double-digit PPR game, not even half, but PPR game in the month of December. I mean, he has been completely invisible, it feels like. Now, look, this is the time to show up. If you're going to show up, this is it. This is your time. This is your moment, Stephon. You know, you're a big-time receiver in this league for all these years. Now it's time to show up in this big game here, and we'll see what happens. I like the Bills in this game. Your thoughts?
What is the spread?
The spread for this one, I will look over on Betting Pros, but I mean, while I'm checking that again, I mean, to me, prime time, Josh Allen, this is your opportunity here to really assert yourself. It's a pick-me spread. It's -3 here for the Buffalo Bills here. Actually, it's not a pick-me spread, excuse me, because they're on the road. So the Bills are getting 3 on the road. Feels right. The over-under is 50 for this game on the consensus line. And then Miami on the money line is +140, which again, my confidence in the Dolphins is just not there.
The over-under is 50?
50.
It seems pretty high. I get that it's two marquee quarterbacks. We just talked about like both offenses like coming in not at 100%, like kind of struggling.
Theoretically, explosive players though. When you have the Tyreek Hills and the Achans of the world, and you have guys like supposedly Stephon Diggs and James Cook has had some big games, I think they have to cover themselves a little bit. 50 does seem like a big number, but I think that's them covering themselves based upon the personnel that's available. And we all know what those games could be. So that's going to be a fun one. The whole week 18 slate's going to be fun. Make sure you're tuning in to Betting Pros to make sure that you are ahead of the game when it comes to all of your wagers, because week 18 is a wacky one when it comes to that. So many moving pieces, but we'll be there for you to hold your hand and break it all down. And I'm sure Andrew Erickson will have a few unders along the way. But in the meantime, that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Underson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy week 18.